Hello and welcome to Creator Toolbox. This is the show for ServiceNow developers, admins, citizen developers, anybody who wants to learn more about developing on ServiceNow. This is where we give you the tools that you need to build apps using App Engine on our platform. So before we get into today's show, we're going to do some introductions and we're going to start with one of our newest team members, or maybe probably the newest team member. Earl, why don't you start us off?
Hi everyone, my name is Earl Duque and I am the brand new developer advocate. Literally just joined yesterday, so this is literally hitting the ground running for me. I came into the ServiceNow space in 2017 and was a customer all the way up until yesterday. So I'm fresh, I'm new, and I'm excited to get started with everything that Brad throws at me this coming weeks.
All right. Well, Earl, we're glad to have you on the team with us. Hey, everybody, I'm Brian Bimschleger. I am the product manager for Flow Designer and Process Automation Designer here at ServiceNow. I've been here for about a year and a half, and in that short time, we've built some really cool stuff for Flow Designer, and we're really excited to share some of those improvements that we rolled into the Rome release with today.
Sebastian Ramirez here. I'm going to be working with demos on Flow Designer. I've been with ServiceNow for about 2 months. I actually came from Zapier, so I've been working with Flow Automation for a while. I'm excited to be here.
All right, thanks. And my name is Brad Tilton. I'm a senior developer advocate with the developer program at ServiceNow. I have been developing on the platform since 2008 as a customer partner, and I've been an employee for almost the last 5 years now. I'm excited about today's show. I did ask Earl to be on the show probably, I don't know, a little more than 12 hours ago. So he's, I'm just throwing stuff at him right and left, I guess. All right, so today's show, we're right kind of at the beginning of our Rome coverage. So the Rome release came out pretty recently. If you want to know more about the Rome release, you can go to devlink.sn/Rome. We have a post up on the developer blog where we've kind of gone through a lot of the different features of the Rome release. And as we release content like blogs and this live stream, we will be linking to those from that blog post. So that's a great place to start if you want to know more about the Rome release. But today, we're going to focus on Flow Designer. We call them data pill transform functions, something like that. That sounds right. I think that's what I titled the stream. So hopefully that's what we call them. So we're going to talk about data pill transform functions. We'll kind of look at some of the existing ones, and then we'll look at some of the new ones in Rome. There are, I don't know if they doubled or at least grew by 50% or something like that. There's a lot of new ones in Rome. And some of them weren't quite obvious what their use cases were to me at first, but then when I got into it, it became a little more obvious, and we'll take a look at some of those. So I think, I don't know if anybody have any announcements. Normally it's Chuck that has some sort of announcement. I didn't even look up what our next breakpoint episode is. Yeah, before we get into it, anybody have any announcements? I'm going to take that as a no. So anybody, if you have questions, put them in the chat, and we'll answer those as we go along. We're going to be focusing on data pill transforms. There's one other big Flow Designer, probably the biggest Flow Designer improvement in Rome is error handling. We're going to do a separate show devoted to error handling on Thursday. So we won't get into that a ton on today's show, but if you have any other Flow Designer questions, put them in the chat. The group that we have on the show here is well equipped to handle those. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, and I have to hit like 3 buttons at the same time. So let's see how this goes. There's that. And let's say that was sort of seamless. All right, so we've got Flow Designer open here. I've got probably all sorts of things in this instance, but we're going to be in a couple of flows and a couple of actions showing these data pill transform functions. And I think I didn't come up with an order to these, but let's start with one that I personally really like, and it's going to be some of the date transform functions. I like them a lot because if you have done any sort of JavaScripting, you know how difficult it can be to work with dates and times and transforming them and things like that. And I really like the implementation of the data picker for that one, or the transform function for the date times. So what we're going to do is, this is just running against a knowledge article, and I'm going to add a log action. And all we're going to do is we're going to take the, let's say the valid to date, and I'm going to log it. So let's start by just logging it and seeing what it looks like. And let's pick one at random and hope it has a valid to date. So I'm testing it. I'm going to look in here and click into the log, and we'll see that this is January 1st, the year 2100. So yeah, this is the default valid to date on the knowledge article, I believe. So as an American, this is not my preferred date format, even though it probably makes the most sense, I'll concede. But I want this to look like month, day, year. And so I can do that really easily by going back into my log statement here. And when I hover over this data pill, I get this plus FX showing up. So if I click into that, it's going to open up this transform function modal, I guess. And I've got some transforms, and it's going to suggest me some transforms, I think, based on, is this based on the format of the value in the data pill, maybe?
It's based on type of the field coming in.
Type, okay. That's kind of what I meant by format. I just didn't say it very well. So valid to, it's going to be a date. And so I think we want date to string here. Yeah, so I can see in here date to string. It's going to give me a bunch of information about how I want to do this. So we've got different formats, and I think I'm going to want something like this, except I want a 4-digit year because it's just going to tell me 01. So lots of info in here. So click view more, and you get a whole bunch of info. And I think I want a custom date because yeah, this one does it. So let's do this and apply. So now I've got that in a string, and I can hit save. And then let's test it again against that same article. And if I click into it, now it has been reformatted. So this is really useful if in ServiceNow, you have a little bit more control over how things are displayed to people with default formats and things like that. But if you're getting some data from an external system through Integration Hub, where you can't really control the formats of things, I think that's when a lot of these transform functions really become valuable. In that you don't have to write some sort of date time script to translate it into something that that your system is expecting.
And this one in particular, turning a date into a string and using some custom formatting. I actually use this one every day, because I wrote some flow in Flow Designer that sends me a digest of my to-dos within Flow Designer every day. And right in the heading or the subject of the email, I format it so it says like, Monday or Tuesday, August 3rd in it. So, we take the date that the flow runs and format it into some more easily readable text and just have that as the subject of my email. So, whether you're cleaning data or just making it easier to read, to have people parse the date a little bit quicker, this is a really, really handy transform.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, this is a great one. The date stuff is pretty nice. So that was an existing transform that was there pre-Rome. And let's get into, I've got a couple of actions set up here to show, I think, some of the new transforms. So this action has a very simple script step. It's kind of, mocking up what you might get from from an integration or something like that. So for this, I've just got an array with a bunch of numbers in it. And we're going to do a couple of things with this where I want, if I want the average of these numbers, I can now do that really easily. Or if I want the median, I can do that pretty easily as well. So we're going to do both of those. So I've got this script step. I've got my outputs. It's going to be output to this number array, I think. And we're going to add a log step in here. Do we have any new steps in the Rome release? I didn't see anything new.
No new action steps, I don't believe.
It's hard to top the JSON parser,
Yeah, the JSON parser is definitely like the hidden gem of action steps, and you combo that with the REST action, and all of a sudden you have something really powerful to connect to external systems and have it play nice with ServiceNow.
Yeah. So let's take this number array and let's say average. And then I'm going to hit the FX. And I think that's a math function. There are a few new math functions in here, and I wrote them down.
Hooray for simple math.
Ooh.
Yeah, so we've got add, average. We're going to use add in a little bit. Average, count. Where's count? Is that string?
I know count was having some issues. It might be rolled into a patch.
Got it.
Coming soon. There's some quirkiness with it.
That makes sense. I was looking at the docs there. So divide, median, multiply, power, and subtract. So right now we're going to do average. So it's telling me for average that the input for this should be an array of integers. And let's hit apply. I guess an array of numbers. And then I also, I think this will work. I also want to do median, and I can use the same data pill, but just apply a different transform to it. And so for that one, let's go median, and it's expecting the same type of input. So if we hit apply and then save, and then test, let's see how this works. So I'm going to hit steps. We're going to go log. So we can see that the average, that looks right. And then we also got a median there. We see that this is our number array. And that does look correct as far as median and average go. From the quick math that I did in my head. So this is a nice, this is a nice thing you can do. I don't know, is there a good like real world example that you can think of off the top of your head? Anybody? I mean, I know there are some.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes if you want to like set up daily alerts, and you have, let's say, just for the sake of example, you have some incidents, popping in, and every morning you want to run some alert. And if you're, you know, I don't know if you have like a severity rating, or maybe you do some math to calculate like what your severity score is for how many open incidents that you have. You can calculate the score run an average on those scores, and if you're over some threshold, notify someone higher up about the progress of those incidents.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good one.
An actual example from my previous workplace was exactly what Brian was saying, but it was the average amount of cases between days of the week. And then because you're able to take multiple transform, and then so we would take the average and then add another rounding one on top of that to make the number prettier instead of the 8 decimals. And
Let's
so
do
then you
that.
would have basic reporting basically within Flow Designer.
Let's do that. So we'll add a round after the average on this one. So number of digits, let's say 1.
And
All
order
right.
of execution for applied transforms is just top down.
Yep. So we're doing an average, and then we're going to do a round. And we'll test.
Now, if I recall, I think the round transform works to the left of the decimal. It doesn't exactly work like you would expect from, yeah. So when you say round to 1, it does it to the like index position 1 to the left of the decimal. So we have stuff in the works where we're going to be either updating this function or creating a new one, kind of depending on how users respond best to that functionality, to get that rounding built in for the right of the decimal.
Nice. So we said 55, so it rounded up to 60. So I guess if I say 0,
yeah,
we should get 55 is what I would expect.
Exactly.
So let's see. And I think, we'll do another one of these where we stack those a little bit, but that's when that's when I think this gets even more powerful, is when you start stacking those together. Oh, 0 got us with the decimal.
All right. Well, I think I just found something to add to our defect list.
But we are good at finding these, finding some defects while we have developers and PMs on these. We did ATF on live code last week and found a couple of things.
The beauty of doing it live, right?
That's right. All right. So my next example is the true false. So this was one that wasn't really obvious to me. So there's 5 new utilities transform functions. So it's get first item from array, get last item from array, is false, is true, and is not blank. And I thought, is false and is true, that seems, it's going to output a true or a false. Why am I giving it a true or a false to output a true or a false? And then I realized, oh yeah, not true and false means different things based on the type of what we're looking at. So in this one, I have this script here where we have two arrays. And so in the first array, we have 3 values that are all false. So we have an empty string, we have a 0 integer and we have a Boolean that's false. And then in our true array, we have a non-empty string. We've got a non-zero integer and we have a Boolean true. So all of these values are false and all these values are true. So let's kind of test this out and make sure that operates the way that I think it does. So this is really valuable if you're doing an integration and the system you're talking to has, true false values that are, maybe different than a Boolean or what you're expecting. So you can use this transform data pill and, your if statement can just say, is true or is false and doesn't have to worry about the format of it. So we're going to do another log step again. I passed it. Wait, where do we go? There it is. And then for this one, we're also going to do, so let's say false array. And we're going to drag this over. And I think the first thing I'm going to do is say get first item from array. And then after that, we will say is false. And then let's do it again. And we'll grab the middle item from array. So I'm going to use this get item from array and tell it I want the second one. And then we will say again, is it false? And then let's do it a third time. And we'll get the last item from the array. And we'll ask it if it's false. All right, so all of these should tell me true when it gets logged out, because all of these values should be false. And we'll say test. And it's finished running. Let's look at our logs. And the false array is true, true, true. So all of these values are false. So they are getting evaluated to true when we say, is this false? So let's do the same thing with the true values, and we should see the same. So I'm going to just, nope, that's the wrong one. So I'm going to hit enter, and we'll say true array. And my script step got minimize. So we'll do get first item again. And then is it true this time? And then I know this example is pretty riveting. So I will go through quickly. And we'll get the last item, and apply it, and then ask it if it's true. And run the
repetition.
test.
That repetition definitely will have that stored in your memory bank, though.
That's right. All right, so steps. So we should see the false array is true, 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 and the true array is true, true, true. So all of those were false, and all of these were true. And so, again, a good way to normalize some values that you get. We see that we've got the values up here. All right. So the last example that we're going to do is we're actually going to create a new flow for this one. And this was when I looked at all of the new transforms, this was the one that jumped out to me first. and that is, let's call it C2B loop. And we are going to loop through some records, and we're going to use the add function to basically add a add a value to our flow variable to keep track of where we are in the loop. So I'm just going to do this. We'll do a quick run once, and we'll set it in the future. Why did that not work? And then we're going to look up some records. And we'll look up some incidents because that's the easiest table for me to look up. And let's say active is true, and we'll look for maybe software incidents. All right. So should get some records from that. So I want to add a flow variable, and we'll just call this, how about iterator? And I'll make it an integer. And then let's, can I give this a default value through here? I don't think I can, right?
No, not right now. But I believe the default value is empty. So as soon as you add anything to it,
Okay.
You should be okay.
I'm going to set it to 0 to start. So I'm going to use the set flow value, and we'll make it 0. So let's go ahead and add some flow logic. So we're going to do a for each where we loop through each of the incident records. And let's start by, as soon as we get into the loop, I want to set the flow variable. Where did that go?
Yeah. All the way at the bottom.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, there you go.
I had to scroll outside of the scrolling.
The old double scroll issue.
All right,
We're
so
working
let's go
on it.
iterator. And this is where we are going to use our transform function. So I grabbed that flow variable in here, and I'm going to hit the transforms. We're going to go math, and we're going to hit add, and I just want to add 1 to it. So let's go apply. Oh, I'm zoomed in a little too far. So we'll go done, and then we're going to log that value. No, that's the wrong one. And I will say the defaulting to the most recent here is so nice. And the popular, I would imagine, would be helpful in an instance where you've got a lot of people working in it. Yeah.
And fun fact about that recent, that list updates whenever you click save. So, if you're one of the users that really saves frequently every couple steps or changes you make, that list is going to be updated very frequently for you. So
nice.
we recalculate
this
on
is
the
for
fly.
you people.
I try to be a frequent saver when I remember to.
We definitely recommend that because we've all encountered the dreaded white screen of Flow Designer before. So.
All right, so let's test this. I think this should work. So let's see what happened here. All right, so we have 8 records that we found. We are looping through each of them, and I set this first one to 1 and got a 1. So let's see if I go to the next iteration, 2. Oh, that's nice. So this is nice. So now it's a lot easier for me to keep track of where I'm at in that for each. Let's see. I think there's
Well,
probably.
let's drill into that log,
Go ahead.
because I think that the 8 there, or the 2, that just represents the number of times through the loop, right? So if we dig in now, we can see
You're right.
our
Yes.
iteration. Yeah, so that little teal number with the loop icon next to flow variables, that kind of lets you know what iteration you're going through on the loop. But when we set our flow variable, like normally that teal 4 next to set flow variables isn't really accessible. You can't really do anything with it. It's just there for like informational purposes when you are viewing the execution details. So now that we can create our own iterator, you can pretty easily come up with some logic that says, hey, it's the start of my day, I want to run something, and just give me like the 10 hottest items that I need to deal with. And you can look up all the records and you can task out, we can just have our iterator go up and just, once we hit the 10th record, then we'll just stop and we'll exit our loop and call it a flow. So it's pretty handy for only doing things a certain number of times, which is nice.
Yeah. So let's try that.
Yeah.
Let's do an if, and let's say maybe if the iterator is less than, let's get our top 3.
Yeah.
And then we'll pull can I pull it in there? Do I have to hit it just right?
Well, I think you have to exit the little picker.
Yeah.
One of the things we did in Quebec is we made it so as soon as you add an if, the then branch will automatically expand. So thinking that if you're building out your flow, you add an if, you might want to start to stub out those actions as well. So I guess we didn't anticipate people adding an if and then dragging stuff in immediately.
I usually try to do things a little too quickly.
No,
all right, so let's go and see. So let's see how many logs we got. So if I go to 2 and then 4, yep. So 4, this was false, and yeah.
Yeah.
So that worked. Do we have an is even or is odd data pill transform?
I don't think so.
I could see if you were looping through where that might be. That's more of like a display thing probably, but
yeah.
But I could see maybe wanting that. All right, well, that's kind of the end of what I have prepped here. Do we want to hit on any of the other enhancements? Again, we'll look at error handling in a lot more detail. Chuck's going to be going into it on Thursday in live coding happy hour.
Yeah, well, I'd say some of the stuff that we have coming for San Diego, to give it a sneak peek, is a lot of transform functions that are related to dates. So, right now we have the ability to convert a date to a string and vice versa and do custom format. But, sometimes you might just want to grab the month number or the day of the month or get the year as an actual integer without having to take a date, parse it as a string, and then do custom format to get the month, to get the year, and then convert that to an integer. Like that's a huge pain in the butt right now. So it'll be really useful for, being able to do generating reports off of like a particular month, or finding everything with the month starts with this number, or if the day of the month is less than X, find all these particular records. So
that is nice. Yeah. Those are always, those are always fun to script especially when you're just doing them in some sort of condition. Like if you've got, if you've got a scheduled thing happening and you only want it to happen on certain, days or time periods, that's a pretty helpful thing.
I think whether you're a low coder or expert coder, nobody really likes handling date.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah.
dates have been around literally as long as time, but we still have trouble figuring them out.
Yeah. Well, we format them differently. We, use them differently. So
Yeah.
yeah, any way to normalize that and make it easier is great. I
I'd
did,
say-
oh, sorry. I did
Oh.
want to call out this, there is a transform functions docs page, and it does list out all of the different kinds. If you want to come in and kind of read more about them, most of them have some examples too on how you might use them. And this is a pretty helpful page to come into and take a look at.
I'd say if anybody has, one of the things we're trying to do with transform functions is identify those areas in Flow Designer where you need like just a little bit of script to accomplish whatever you're trying to do. And we're trying to make it so you don't need to use that one line of script or inline script to accomplish your goal. We're really trying to create an environment where for the high percentage of the business use cases that you're working on, you can handle your data with transform functions. So if anybody has any ideas on transforms or a transform function that would just make your life a little bit easier, would save you the one line of script, feel free to drop that in the chat, and we can see if it makes sense, see if we can get it on the roadmap. We're always open to new ideas.
Yeah, we do have a comment from Sam in the chat around regular expressions. But
Yeah.
also, if you're watching this after the fact and you still want to give feedback, you can reach out to myself or Earl. We're pretty easy to find on the community, SN Devs, Twitter, or LinkedIn, and let us know, and we can route feedback to the right places.
Yeah. So I think a regex one could be really interesting. We have, I don't know, I suppose we have like really basic concepts of regex already with, like starts with, contains, ends with, but that's not full regular expression support. But the other one is that's interesting in this chat is random integer transform script. Certainly, I think we need the ability to generate some sort of random integer. And one of the reasons I think that is because we just released the transform for working with arrays. You can get an item at a specified index. So for example, if you want to do like a randomized quality control check, or you have a security team and they don't have the time to review everything, but we just kind of want to do ad hoc random checks to make sure people are following a process correctly. You could look up a list of records, determine the length, choose one at random, and then assign that task out to the rest of your team. So right now, randomize is something you'd have to script yourself, but being able to choose something at a specific position within an array is something that we did just introduce.
Yeah, and we used that in the action designer here.
Is in schedule, true, false. Yeah, that's a really good one as well. In regards to date time functions. So, one of the other things that we're considering for transform functions that we're trying to figure out the right way to do it, but would be the ability to use the pill picker within your transforms. So right now we can say, hey, if I do my flow variable and I want to increment it by 1, well, maybe I want to increment it by a value of some other data pill that I've used before. Right now, we don't have that ability to access the pill picker and your data pills when using transforms. So another example, maybe you have 2 dates and you want to like add them. I don't know if add the dates together is the right term, but maybe you have a date and some duration. You want to combine those existing values that you have in your flow. Really being able to combine and multiple previous data pills with transforms is something we're looking to do that I think would make transforms even more powerful.
And then someone will
Nice.
ask if you can transform on top of that data pill.
Oh yeah.
So transform inception. Yeah.
I'm going to take date X, I'm going to add duration Y, and then I'm going to transform that into a string, and then parse out the month. Yeah.
All right.
Someone
I'm
out there has a
stop
use
the,
case.
I'm going to stop the screen share here. We'll be back on video. All right. So I did see one other thing I wanted to hit on is I did see there's some performance improvements, which I think we make performance improvements to Flow Designer pretty much every release. But it looked like there were some this release, maybe some around reporting, and then I saw something else too. Do you have any, Brian, anything specific that we did around performance?
Yeah, so with reporting, it's that you just mentioned, what we did is we set the default reporting in production instances to minimal, just to save on storage, save on how quickly the flows are going to execute. So it's certainly something that customers can update themselves. You can go into system properties or flow properties and be able to configure the depth of your reporting. But if you are if you have an instance with high velocity, high number of flows running at the same time, just logging what happens in your flow, what happens at each action, what happens on the steps of each action can take up a lot of bandwidth for you. So if you're running into issues where flows aren't running as quick as they should, or you just have like kind of a log jam in the queue of flows waiting to execute, this update in Rome to the default reporting is going to probably make your flows run a little smoother.
Nice.
So some of the other big improvements we made in Rome were in regards to UI performance. So for a long time, I would wake up every morning and there'd be some new case that was submitted from someone saying, hey, I built this really cool, big, awesome flow. And whenever I open it up, I can go make a coffee and then come back and my flow's still not done, and that kind of pains me to hear that. So we put a lot of effort into specifically for larger flows. So like 50 actions or more, into optimizing how quickly those flows load. So with our testing that we've done, we've seen about a 50% reduction in load time for those large flows. But if a flow took 5 minutes to open, now it's 2.5. So we realize that there's room for improvement, but loading flows, modifying flows, once you've loaded a flow and you click on an action to view the details, all that stuff is just a little bit faster all the way around. So hopefully makes the experience of using Flow Designer a little bit more enjoyable and gets you back to doing the work that you need to do instead of sitting around waiting for things to load.
Yeah, awesome. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today. Thank you, Brian and Sebastian for joining. Thanks, Earl, for joining on short notice for your first of many, I'm sure. Again, we'll be back on Thursday, or Chuck will be back on Thursday. And we'll go deep into flow error handling. We're going to add some error handling to some of our flows that we use, weekly for the dev program. We're excited about that. Next week, we'll be doing some process automation designer on Creator Toolbox. And then I think we're going to get into Integration Hub imports on Live Coding Happy Hour next week. You can also expect a blog post on Flow Designer this week. And last week, if you missed it, we did some ATF blog post, and then we also mostly set up headless ATF on Live Code last week. So we are really getting into Rome and looking at all the great features. So stay tuned for more Rome content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out the blog, and let us know, what you like, what you'd like to see in the future. We're, always open for feedback. So anybody have anything else before we take off? All right. Well, thanks for joining, everybody, and we will see you again on Thursday for Live Coding Happy Hour. All right. Bye,
All
everybody.
right, sounds good. Talk to you.